AITA for kicking my stepdaughter out of my home after she fed her kids my food.
Please be kind.
I'm a mess.
I'm 36 Seth.
And I have been married to Joey 44M for 3 years. Together for 5.
I came into the relationship with 3 kids of my own.
They are 6-yo boy, 8-yo boy and 13-yo girl.
My husband also has 3 kids.
17-yo boy, 19-yo girl and 20-yo girl.
These past 8 months have been some of the hardest times I've ever endured.
My dad died early December and it slammed me hard.
I'm an only child with no surviving close relatives, so the funeral cost was up to me.
And unfortunately, I inherited debt.
I tried to get it cleared, but it cost an arm and a leg in lawyer fees, and at the end, I still owed close to $36,000.
I was just starting to get back to a stable financial position in May, when my mom died, and this one just broke me.
My mom was my rock, my best friend.
I didn't inherit any debt, thankfully, but I was in charge of funeral costs again.
I got a lot of help from the community thankfully, but in the end I still had to pay nearly $3,800 out of pocket.
Given that I was already in a rough financial position, this really hurt the household.
Thank God for my children's father.
Because if it wasn't for him really shouldering most of the children's expenses during this time, they'd have nothing.
And unfortunately, I wasn't strong enough to go back to work immediately following the death of my mom.
I became a walking shell of a person.
It took everything out of me to just get out of bed.
Despite not being able to afford it, I was out of work for a month.
It was my fault.
I wasn't strong enough.
I'm back to work now.
But I'm going to food banks just to feed us.
Joey's 20-yo daughter knows what type of position we are in.
She has seen us struggling.
She has seen me in the middle of meltdowns.
But when I woke up from an afternoon nap yesterday and walked out into our kitchen, I found my 20-yo stepdaughter in my kitchen cooking her 2 children 3.5 and 2 the kielbasa and rice that I had prepped and sitting in the fridge for dinner that night.
I asked her what in the world she was doing feeding her kids the little last of the food I had in my home.
And she shrugs and said, well, my kids were hungry.
I told her my kids were hungry too, and that was the last of the food I had here to feed them.
She raises her eyebrows, says okay,
and continues to dish out plates for her kids.
I guess the last piece of me just broke. I snapped.
I told her to get out of my home immediately and said she wasn't welcome back here.
Joey came out after hearing the commotion and asked what was going on. So I told him that his daughter was feeding the last of our food to her daughters and that I now had no idea how I was going to feed my kids and that she needed to leave and not come back. Joey took his daughter's side.
Said that I was being ridiculous and that if his grandchildren are hungry then they are allowed to eat.
I told them both that those kids should have ate at their own house before coming here, and again told my stepdaughter to leave.
Joey tells me if his daughter isn't welcome here then neither is he, so he left too.
I have been getting text after text from both Joey and his daughter, stating that I traumatized those little girls and how they supposedly won't eat without looking over their shoulder, and Joey has told me he wants a divorce, which I will happily give him.
But I am admittedly so filled with anger and grief and guilt that I am having a hard time grasping whether or not I am in the wrong for what I did.
AITA?
My kids did eat. Their dad came over and cooked them a meal.